my name's Steve. I work in the technology sector at Google. I'm joined by my colleague Guillaume Becuvier, who's French, if you haven't guessed. And Guillaume is our European business manager. Very much these products, when they come to market, and we're currently working with alpha partners, but when these products come to market, they're going to be applicable to all sectors, because obviously this interaction and this funding happens in automotive, it happens in B2B, it happens in technology. But very much it's been the technology sector in Google that has been working on them most. Manufacturers and clients who don't sell direct, there's a real challenge to them to be able to take advantage of the shift in consumer behaviour into the online environment. And very much these products are set to take advantage of that shift. So the main reasons why we're looking to do this is there's a lot of challenges for an original equipment manufacturer in controlling that environment. There's also a huge opportunity there for them as well. As noted, consumers increasingly are using search to research, to purchase, to form consideration, and it's important for a brand that doesn't sell direct to be involved in that conversation, but also to enable the consumer to shortcut through to their option on the retailer. And we really taken the company ethos of looking to develop tools which can solve problems that brought us to this space. So what we'd like to do today is just top line some of our thinking on this. Ideally, we would also like, if there's anyone in the room who's interested in being engaged in the conversation further, to please give your card to any of the Google people in the room. Myself and Guillaume, we've got Richard at the back and Elisa, we've got Stuart as well. So please just find one, just give us your card, and then we'll keep you up to date on these products as they look to develop as well. So really, looking first of all at the opportunity in using this as the platform, we know that online sales are increasing. Whenever we look at any of our own query metrics or look at Hitwise, identifying what are the main terms that people are typing in, we know that brand names continue to dominate search behaviour. So not only are they incredibly important as people research, but also we've noted that the more brand names that are on a page, the higher the click-through rate for that overall page as well. So consumers actually use brand names as a way, almost like a proof test, they've done the right search. So if I'm typing in TV and I see Samsung, LG, Sharp, then I don't need to research again, I can just click on one of those. So brand names definitely increase the overall CTR. And we also know as well that consumers use retail sites for more than just buying. So they're using retail sites for a very critical part of the research process. And this is why you'll see a lot of retailers doing partnerships with publishers where they're looking to put reviews onto their site, they're putting on videos, because they know that people are coming to their site much more than just simply making a purchase. They're actually going to the trusted retail brands to find out a bit more before they look to buy. And it's important for someone who doesn't sell direct to get involved in that conversation and to facilitate that traffic through, because ultimately it will benefit them. It's incredibly difficult for an original equipment manufacturer to coordinate this, because search is a very dynamic environment. You could end up with, there's a lot of different people competing on that page. You may have the brand's official site is competing with a retailer who's selling your product. So it makes sense to bring some degree of consistency and control to that. And I think probably the best example of this is when you look at the advertising messages that a manufacturer might use, they'll tend to emphasize the functionality and all of the benefits of a particular product. But if you type that product name into Google, then very often it will just say free. And this is looking at a mobile phone example, and automatically you see that brand credibility and collateral just be associated with cheap, with bargain, with free. And in fact, they're actually, really they want to emphasize all of the other features that are involved there. So as we step into this environment, we're looking to bring not only funding from the manufacturers to drive the sales for within retail, but also the manufacturers themselves want to bring some cohesion and some control into the brand messages, much as they have control in the offline environment. So if you walk into a PC World and there's signage there for a Hewlett-Packard, etc., then that's all been signed off by the brand, by the manufacturer. So it's looking to bring that same degree of control within that. So there's obviously a number of benefits from this, both to the retailer and also to the manufacturer. Namely qualification, so it will enable authorized retailers to tap into funds that perhaps they have not previously been able to get. So if these are funds that are either driving sales, so they can use it for much more than just discounting, they can start to use sales funds to actually drive sales. And the manufacturers are keen to do this, particularly in the current economic environment where they have to show much more for the marketing dollar. So they're keen to start working closer with their reseller partners to facilitate this. It means that it's incredibly, it brings flexibility for the manufacturer as well. So often we're talking about quite large organizations who can find it a challenge to react quickly to a market opportunity. E-tail, by its very nature, tends to react quickly. And this will allow the manufacturer to take advantage of the expertise that currently exists in their sales channel and fund that expertise as well. So that's one of the main benefits there. And then obviously, I mean, online obviously is incredibly accountable. And one of the trade-offs for the funding is that they get insight into what's actually happening with the funds. I think it never ceases to surprise me that when you speak to a manufacturer about what happens to the money they give to their channel partners, they often don't know. So, and their suspicion is that it gets used to discount the product. Their suspicion is that it gets used to buy a page in a brochure that no one reads. But they just really don't have a real sense of what's happening to the funds that they're giving. But they have set it up that if you generate a certain number of sales, you can claim a certain percentage of marketing. So this will bring a degree of accountability to that as well. These are all the main benefits of the OEM. So really, I mean, how does this look? We've got some screenshots here, just examples. As I say, we're alpha testing some of these products. Just some examples of how it might look. So this is an example where Philips and Amazon work together. And really what Philips wanted to do, they were aware of the limitations of their own site. They were aware of their own turnaround time and being able to get new pages up onto the site within the corporate look and feel. But they also, they had a need to drive sales of a particular product at a particularly critical time of the year. So they worked with ourselves and with Amazon just to simply, let's do a test. Let's see, we will give you some funds and we will fund this search activity. And we just really want to drive that activity through to a point of purchase. And then they can look at, the trade-off was they would then wanted sales figures, etc., to then look to refund this. And really, the success of this test led us to think, well, there's a much bigger opportunity here. Not just within technology, but also every sector where this trade-off tends to happen. So I've obviously mentioned automotive, but really when you look at entertainment and DVD releases, etc., a lot of companies don't have e-tail expertise, and it makes sense that they simply fund and facilitate the people that do. And that's what these products will be looking to do. So as I said, we've launched, or we're working on a suite of products. So we currently have got alpha tests in place with manufacturers and e-tailers. What we're looking to bring out, it's actually a portfolio of products. The main reason it's a portfolio is because everybody's needs are slightly different. So we're bringing out a portfolio of products that will allow the OEM to work across a spectrum of resellers. And starting at one end, you may have a manufacturer or someone like Cisco, for instance, who has an army of authorized resellers who have to go through an accreditation process. But they may not be very sophisticated in terms of an online presence. They may not have e-commerce functionality. It may be that that they don't even have a website in some scenarios. So in this scenario, Cisco would be looking to facilitate the setup of that and looking to really have a lot of control in their activity. So starting on the left is what we would call, this is what's called AMP, and sits within the Google Channel Marketing Manager. And AMP is really a way of enabling very controlled, pre-set up activity that you can just then roll out across your authorized resellers. The next iteration is what we call plug. We see a theme here. This is where you might have resellers who have got some activity already, but it might be quite limited. And what you're really looking to do is just to facilitate this further. You're looking to provide funds to facilitate this. And this is where you would have a shared control of the campaigns. So it's very much that you will put in place certain guidelines that they will then take on board, but they also have the freedom to tinker with some of the creatives, some keywords that they appear on, etc. Then the final one is where you've got very sophisticated resellers. So it might be that some of your main resellers are online pure plays. They have built up a real heritage of online sophistication. They've built up good quality scores, etc. And it makes sense in this scenario just simply to take advantage of that and just fund the activity. That expertise is being focused on driving sales of your product set. and this is what we refer to as circuit. So these would be much more sophisticated advertisers who are merely looking for funds. They sell your products already. They're very good at selling online, but they want to start competing further by taking your money and driving sales of your product.
Maybe it's worth if I can pitch in for 2 minutes,
Sure.
Steve. Giving you more details about what's behind these products, because this is very conceptual. Essentially, we're trying to address some of the shortcomings of the standard AdWords tool when it comes to doing these kind of co-founded models. So we've tried to add an extra layer, and we're still work in progress, to be perfectly honest with you, to address some of the shortcomings of AdWords. Namely, what typically will manufacturers / suppliers and their retailers look for is, for one, easy reporting on what's going on. So if you're the manufacturer funding activity with a lot of your resellers, you want to have a simple interface where you know what's going on in all the campaigns that you're funding. So a lot of the work is around reporting to give the people that are funding campaigns from third parties to see what is going on with their money, how much traffic is being bought, where it's being directed, is it compliant with the rules that have been set initially, and potentially also get some sales data when that's agreed upon with a particular reseller. So across the board, one dimension, one feature suite that is around reporting, supervision, and control, which is a key requirement in these kind of co-funding programs. And then the second layer of features is around campaign templatization. So especially when you're on the right-hand side or plug, when you're dealing with a lot of small resellers that will not run their own search because they don't know how to do online marketing, you as the manager of the program want to be able to set keyword templates, creative templates, things that are where people can just fill in their name basically and run campaigns at scale very easily. So that's another suite of features. It allows you to create replicable search campaigns that can just be tweaked or fine-tuned for each reseller and be managed at scale, which the standard AdWords interface doesn't allow you to do. So these are essentially the kind of 2 sets of features that the product does, is it addresses the shortcomings of AdWords to run these kind of programs at scale. That doesn't mean you don't have to rely on AdWords. It's really a layer on top of our standard product.
Has anyone got any questions?
Sure. How far does the feedback go that the manufacturer gets? Do they also get conversion and the revenue from the site, or does that depend on the agreements? Is it possible depending on the agreements?
It's very much dependent on the agreement, because that's first and foremost contractual terms between the supplier and the reseller. In some of the pilots that we've been running, these agreements have been reached. So in some cases, if that tracking of sales is done through our tools, i.e. conversion tracking, Google Analytics, it could potentially be managed by us. If conversion tracking is not managed through our tools, then it has to be followed separately manually in a way. It can be addressed by our tool set. But yes, there have been instances where sales have been tracked.
Or would that be visible within this reporting as well, or would this only be on a campaign level really?
Well, if the sales tracking is done with our tools, potentially it could be. It's not available yet. But the issue is that, especially when you're dealing with a big online retailer, he's going to have his own analytics system. He won't be relying on Google Analytics. So it'll have to be a separate workflow, so to say, to get that sales data from the reseller.
So then you'd be relying on data, which is what you can currently see, so clicks out, click-through rate, etc., etc. And then you make a side agreement with the reseller that you'd want or expect that sales data back. So really then looking at what the benefits of this, and again, and I know a lot of the examples that we're using are technology based, but I think they're applicable to lots of other sectors. The challenge for our client set, so I deal with a lot of hardware manufacturers such as Samsung, Panasonic, etc. We don't have e-commerce facility. So what they're really looking to do is they want to be involved. They want to fund sales. The increased pressure on their marketing budgets are to drive sales. So this is a very easy way for them to do that. Use the expertise of the people who are selling the products. It also allows them to increase the share of voice as well, so they can look to fund much more activity because there's a sales benefit that is coming from it as well, which allows them to tap into different fund sets within the organisation. And obviously it gives them the transparency into that activity as well. So it enables them to, if it works, then it starts to become a self-funding model, so you can increasingly pitch for more. From a channel partner perspective, which I'd imagine would be more the context of this room, it means that you start to get the financial contribution from the manufacturer. So this is more often than not funds that perhaps you wouldn't currently be seeing. So the funds, sales support funds that currently get used, tend to be based on current sales that you drive. Manufacturers are very much approaching this as being a blend of sales support and marketing funds, so it'll start to hopefully give you access into these increased revenue pots. And obviously, the better you are at driving the sales for them, then it starts to become, they start to fund the people who are providing best support. And obviously as well, then there's it's the easy to use element of it. So there's functionality built into this which should facilitate the whole process. The current scenario, the feedback we get on the current scenario is it can be quite laborious to work with multiple partners, to work with manufacturers, to tap into these funds, and this will be set up to facilitate that, to make it easy. There's a selection process, there's an authorization process built into it as well, which then means that it should start to become much swifter and easier to do.
To add to that, if you look at our experience with Intel Inside, I don't know if there's anyone in the room that is involved in any shape or form with that particular program of Intel, but that's one of the things that actually the PC manufacturers welcome with the Google branch of Intel Inside, is it was a hell of a lot easier for them to get those campaigns approved by Intel compared to getting Intel to approve co-funding of a print ad in a magazine or a TV ad, from just a workflow and time standpoint. So the automation and the improvement in just the approval process, which in the case of IIP is quite heavy, was actually very welcome. Yes, I guess we are ourselves kind of learning as we go. We our only really global large-scale program using those kind of concepts has been Intel Inside, which has been running now for pretty much almost 3 years. And is funded is a multi-million-dollar program. Intel does really fund a lot of search marketing in the PC space. And from that, we kind of learned best practices that we wanted to share with you. I think if any of you is interested in experimenting with this, either as a reseller or as a supplier, it's good to start small. I think there's this scalability of AdWords is great. So doing a little pilot between one reseller and one manufacturer is a good way to see whether it works for you, and what are the involved constraints in terms of workflow and processes. And then from that, build on and build it as you go once you've understood everything in more detail. The second thing that we found with Intel Inside is, especially if you're dealing with very small resellers who are limited experience with online marketing, is it requires a lot of training and education. We spent the first 6 months of the Intel Inside program not so much educating Dell and HP about online marketing because they knew about it quite well, but all the smaller computer manufacturers that Intel supplies in Middle East and Eastern Europe, also in Western Europe, in Asia as well, that weren't necessarily using AdWords that much or using online altogether. So there was a huge investment there that needs to be addressed at some point. The third point is that it's very difficult to have a one-size-fits-all search partner program that works well with both your largest resellers in the online space, the Amazons, the eBays, the PC world of this world, and the small local regional distributor, which has different needs and different degrees of sophistication. So we strongly recommend, if you want as a supplier to engage in this, to have a tier program, where you have an offering for your sophisticated large-scale resellers that already understand search marketing, and then an offering which is much more packaged and off the shelf for your lower round of resellers who are barely beginning in this space. That's really fundamental. And again, to look at what happened in Intel Inside, that's very much what happened. Intel has 2 tracks in its program. The track 1 program, which is basically its business with Dell, HP, and so forth, and the track 2 program for the smaller PC manufacturers, with different financial terms and different service offerings. As much as you can, ideally for the concept to be very effective, and to the earlier question, getting as much ROI visibility end-to-end is really important. So if as a supplier, you're able to agree with your resellers that you get at least partial visibility on how that money, that those campaigns that you're funding are converting into sales, the more you can do that, the better. Because you can justify that investment much more strongly internally, because you're saying, I'm giving $1 million to this reseller, but I'm getting 20 million back and I can measure it. And we help basically manage the ecosystem, shall we say, and facilitate, maximize productivity in managing these programs. But it's still a business decision between you and your resellers. We cannot, there's some parts of the program that need to be defined solely by you and your resellers, so to say. We cannot play that role, in particular when it comes to financial terms and compliance rules and so forth. So we focus on making the AdWords technology to work as well as possible to make these programs possible, but that's it in a way. So it's really a team effort between resellers, Google, potentially agencies when there are agencies involved on both sides, and resellers and manufacturers. It's a fairly complex ecosystem.
Does anyone have any further questions on that? Has anyone got any experience, anyone in the room, of like working examples where you currently work with people who look to fund your activity that they'd like to share with the group? Yeah?
Yeah, we work with, my name's Finlay from Big Mouth Media. We work with computer game retailer. And it's been problematic in the past because occasionally when Microsoft want to fund one of their games, they set up ads and link it through to the retailer site directly. Now, you can't have two ads at the same time, as you know, so sometimes our ads are switched off at key times of the day. Right. Microsoft have gone on and turned on their ads, so we have to work closely with them, but it's traditionally been quite difficult. So presumably, what you're talking about here could be an instance where a client would probably engage with you guys and get the money that they're getting from Microsoft and whoever else wants to promote their games through this.
Yeah.
That'd be right?
Yes. Exactly. It'd be an iteration of that. I think one of the other benefits is, I would imagine, if Microsoft do that, they would have they would obviously have to bid higher if they're coming into the auction, whereas your client would have that quality score that would be built up to be a cost saving. So this would facilitate that, and it's exactly for that reason.
In general terms, when the retailer or reseller involved is a sophisticated online player, shall we say, with a good AdWords history, it's actually to the benefit and advantage of Microsoft to get the campaigns to actually run in the reseller account, because he's going to benefit from that expertise, the quality score, and so forth. If he's funding it himself, he's new to that query landscape, if you like. He's going to have to pay much higher CPCs and probably get lower results than if he just trust the reseller to do it well and then have the mechanisms of control to make sure that his money is well spent. So those are pretty much things that we're trying to sort out with the tools that we're currently involved in.
I'm Mark from Shoe. We're a fashion footwear retailer, and the brands that we stock an array of footwear brands, Caterpillar, Timberland, and the like, and they will provide us with brand contributions for instance, window space and the like. But some of them are starting to express an interest in contributions towards PPC advertising because you can measure the return.
Yeah.
But very much the onus is on us because we've got the experience in AdWords and so on, and they don't have much experience in that. So when we've spoken to one or two of them at the moment, they are taking the view, well, if you can demonstrate to us what you're spending and the sales you're generating, we will help fund that. But we can provide that from the information we've already got. So what's this going to do over and above? So over and above what the information we can already provide to them,
sure.
Because they want to do a whole other learning process.
I suppose really what it would be looking to do is bring some scale to it. So if Caterpillar are working with a number of people in your situation, then it would enable them to do that much easier. And on the flip side, if you've got a number of brands who you're hoping to take funds from, again, this is a mechanism that makes that much easier for you to receive those funds. You can do this manually, but we're looking to sidestep some of the complications that come from doing it manually and bring some automated processes to it, just to make the whole process a little smoother.
So it will be very much productivity benefits in your case. You just put yourself in a situation where the 300 brands that you're selling are all funding your search. So if you do it manually at some point at the end of every month, you're going to have to send 300 different reports on different campaigns to each brand to justify the use of the funds. The idea here is to make that more manageable by automating it to a large extent.
So as I say, we're currently working with alpha partners at the moment, and really, I mean, it's dependent on that test. As with any alpha test, there are probably things that we just haven't foreseen yet. I would say that we're looking, that alpha test is going to be 8 weeks, and then we're going to sit down with all the partners involved and decide how we bring it forward. So we're hopeful that we can start to bring working iterations of this to a beta stage within 3-4 month period. And certainly, if anyone in the room wants to be kept up to date on that process, as I say, leave your cards and we'll make sure that you're notified.
Actually, I would even add to that, given how decision making takes place at Google in terms of prioritizing product development, the more anecdotes we have from both suppliers and resellers saying, I'm interested in this, I would benefit from this tool, the better, because that reinforces our case to get our engineering team to allocate more resources to it. Because we have a very nice kind of PowerPoint business plan on this already with Steve and a few others. But the way it works at Google, it's better if we can bring in and say, here's a list of 20 accounts with 20 contact names that have formally told us they're interested in this. And we have quite a few names already, but if there are people in this room that want to be added to that list, I think we would benefit from it internally in getting this to move even faster.
I have a question maybe for the group. Are there any big challenges that you see in the way you manage your programs now, or does everything run smoothly?
For those who do have problems.
I guess maybe everything's working perfectly.
What about a quick show of hands? Who currently receives money directly from manufacturers to sell their products? And keep your hand up, is that an easy process or is it laborious?
Laborious.
Yes, laborious.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised that people in the room aren't getting more money to sell people's products. When you look at the offline world, you have to buy shelf space. I think in the online world, it's just taken for granted that you sell someone's product because there's a margin there.
That was very much what drove our investment with Steve and others into this project. Is you just look at what's going on in the offline world and the amount of money that is flowing in trade promotion is just bewildering. That the same concept hasn't applied to online earlier than what it is today. I mean, in a way, it's almost shocking because most of the amounts that are at stake in trade promotion, for example, between supermarkets and consumer goods are huge at a magnitude which is much greater than what's going on in online.
I wasn't aware of that. I suppose what the seminar was really focusing on in terms of this aspect of it. But I don't understand the manufacturers paying, so in selling shoes, yeah? Why would Caterpillar or someone else be giving him money to promote? But as a reseller, it's my job. I'm a reseller. My job is to sell this product. And the more I sell, the better price I'm going to get from you. So he's not going to pay me, the distributor, to do it because he's going to pay me by my return. So I'm a very good online seller. And we sell lots, so we get a better price there. And I'm not doing my job right if I'm not already AdWording or doing my pay-per-click or online only campaign correctly. So it seems to be missing. It must be much bigger. I'm thinking all of the people who supply us, we source quite a lot direct now.
Right.
We're getting stuff made for us, but
yeah.
From the people who supply us, it wouldn't occur to them to pay us to promote their product. I like the idea of buying premium space with us to push their product. I mean,
at minimum, it's very much this question is am I happy with my share of voice with that particular reseller, right? So there's a share of voice issue at two levels. One is virtual shelf space. So on the landing pages and on the website, how can I get more prominence relative to my competition? And I can buy my way to prominence, which is pretty much what Intel is doing for. They're getting their stickers on as many computers and ads as possible, so that people forget that AMD exists altogether. And so I guess there's already quite a bit of money flowing in that space, which is to negotiate more prominence on websites. The next natural step is taking the same logic to search, because likewise there's this question of when people are searching for shoes in general as a query category, is my share of voice as Timberland, to use the example of earlier, the one that I want? And do I want maybe even for a temporary period of time to overtake the space? So there's, for example, one idea that we have been discussing, for example, is that if you're a TV manufacturer, let's take Samsung for the sake of the example, you may want, for a temporary period of time, to literally overtake the TV query category. So anyone who's searching for TVs, whether it's Samsung branded queries or generic, I want the Samsung brand to be there. So I can try to negotiate with my resellers that potentially temporarily, I will be funding all of your search on generic TV queries as long as you're created on your landing page is biased in my favor. So it's fighting for space.
They're not selling branded products. That's
Yes.
the issue. They're not pushing for that because they're not branded products. That's the issue.
Yes, it's very much related to that plays a big role. Whether we're talking about an area where there's big brands and competition between brands, this question of how am I performing in terms of share of shelf and share of voice, which in tech is a huge problem, right? I mean, there's 5 or 6 big TV manufacturers. How do I make myself stand in the middle of the crowd? It's a big question.
Yeah, I'm not sure it matters whether it's a branded product or not. I mean, if your manufacturers
Yeah.
are interested in you selling more of their products,
Yeah.
if they have marketing funds available to do that, then why not take the money?
Great, and we'll take the money off
Yeah.
it. We
Well,
just
it's
feel it's
branded
our
or not,
job
yeah.
to do our very best to already
Yeah.
sell it.
Yeah.
And you could give us more, and ideally, we already feel we're doing the maximum. It's like, if we're on position 1 for, we're selling your water features, for example, or your awnings, or your guide, a few £1 million of this. I mean, of course you give us money, but because we're not selling other products, and there's no brand competition, it's not like it's going to push it more. But I see it in terms of very heavily competing brands on the same website.
Push it more because you get more
Yeah.
volume.
Yeah.
And it's not even brands, it's multi-supplier websites in general will have,
Yeah.
will have an interest in doing this. And I want to bounce on Stuart's comment to say that this is not a B2C issue only. Stuart and Richard focus more on B2B clients. It's the same story if you're selling to other businesses, right? So if, again, to take tech examples, if you're an IBM or a Cisco, you have an interest in making sure that your regional resellers are promoting your servers, not the ones of the guy next door. So you may want to incentivize them to promote your product more prominently.
I think it's also a question of effectiveness of marketing budget. If you're a manufacturer and you've got marketing budget, and you think it's going to be spent more effectively by a reseller,
Yeah.
why don't you give it to him? So if you're not able to run a Google campaign yourself, you give it to your reseller.
That's actually a very good point. I think what we're seeing as well is obviously the chief marketing officers of Sony and Samsung right now are saying, especially in these times, is it better for me to spend $20 million doing a TV ad with bubbles flying around, or to make sure that there's more product, flying off the shelves of my resellers? So it resonates very well right now with the particular economic times, because people are very much worried about what ROI they're getting out of their marketing investments. So it's a timely topic, shall we say, based on what we say.
Yeah, hi, my name's Christina. I work at Amazon. Clearly, this is something as a reseller that we're interested in. I think the big pain point that we're having in convincing our internal retail partners that this is a great idea, and by the way, I do believe it is a great idea, is that from their perspective, working with OEM, there's going to be concern about which bucket the spend is going to come out of. So if you're a reseller, or if you're a manufacturer, and you're already spending money with a retailer, are you going to rob Peter to pay for Paul, or is this going to be a completely separate allocable budget, and therefore we're fine, and what you spend to sell your product on our website, either by co-op funding to reduce your price or for a placement on a certain part of the website, is completely different from this particular spend. And I would love, if there's any of you in the room who are OEM and think this is a great idea, I'd love to hear how you are reconciling that in your head so that I can have that conversation with my retail partners.
And what we see, and again, it varies by manufacturer/supplier, is that in a lot of cases, the programs are set up in a way whereby they give funding to their resellers, which is proportionate to the volume of sales that they generate. And most of them will set rules on how that money is used, and in particular, a lot of them are not necessarily comfortable in that money being used to drive down the price point, especially those who want to manage their margins and their brand positioning, right? So if you're a Sony and you're on a high-end segment, you don't want to be giving millions to your resellers so that they drive your price point down to the one product. So it's kind of dependent also on what the manufacturer itself has set as rules when it comes to using its funds. Again, taking the example of Intel Inside, which is a very, very well-defined, very, very complicated program, Intel certainly does not want that money to end in the bottom line of the PC manufacturers. They want the money that they give to be actually used in advertising to promote the Intel brand. So that's why they're so focused on controlling, because otherwise there's a natural inclination from some of the PC manufacturers in this case to take the money from Intel and just add it as extra profit. I mean, why not if you're not being controlled? So it's all a matter of how clear and articulate and detailed the program is, and how proactive and efficient the supplier is in making sure that these rules are complied with.
I think as well that debate's happening on the funders side as well. So they're very much looking at search as being a hybrid between a marketing tool and a sales channel. So therefore you do have that internal discussion about where the funds should come from. And it's something that's, that debate is going on between the sales teams and the marketing teams within these organizations as well. So that's certainly, I think we should facilitate that discussion, but I don't know exactly where it'll end up falling. Got any other questions?
Are you hoping that this will instigate more function?
I'd say that obviously we know that search is an effective way of marketing. There are, referring again to what brought us to this, there's a number of clients that we work with in the technology space who, because they don't sell online, have been late to the search party because they don't have that same e-commerce impetus to investing in it. And we believe that yes, by enabling them to take a shortcut to that will enable the retailers to tap into more funds. So yeah, we would see this as being a hopeful boost within that space. I think when we also look at areas like automotive, where you've got large brands, but then you've got networks of resellers. Again, there's a challenge between the brand and the reseller network about how they bridge that gap and raise brand awareness, but then drive someone into a store. And I think there's other sectors. So hopefully it'll help facilitate that type of funding.
Insurance is another good example. A lot of insurance companies do not sell direct or have a small direct channel, but most of it is through brokers. So when we present the idea with a twist that adapts to their business, they like it a lot as well. How can I, as an insurance underwriter, influence the marketing activities of my brokers? Same story. I mean, obviously, if you think about it in the business world, there's tons of manufacturers and service companies that do not have a direct channel. I mean, that's the case for most businesses, actually. So it's in a way, it's a pretty obvious concept when you think about it.
Any more? Okay, well, thanks very much for your time. And as I say, just please make sure you leave your card with someone that would be in touch as the product is developed.
Thank you very much.